What's up, YouTube? I'm Dave, and you're watching Duelist Destiny, and we got Rebecca behind the camera today.
Hey, guys.
But today, I'm going to show you my Dark Magician 2020 deck profile. Let's take a look. This should be totally epic. We're going to get into this box of goodies here. Here we go. Oh, should be pretty awesome. So this deck is probably like $500 to $700. It's pretty crazy. But we're going to get into this. We're going to show you all the epic cards in here. It's going to be full of godliness. And we're going to show you the deck profile. We're going to show you combos. And then I'm going to show you a duel replay at the end. So stay tuned because it's going to be packed full of things that you're going to want to see. Okay, so we're going to go through the deck profile first, and then we'll do combos. And at the end of the video, we'll show some recorded duel replays. So I play one copy of Magician of Chaos. He's basically our 5th Dark Magician card. 3 Dark Magicians, definitely just required. 3 copies of Palladium Oracle Mahad for drawing special summon support / Dark Magician support. 1 Dark Magician girl who we really just want to get rid of to the graveyard. 3 Apprentice Illusion Magicians, so battle support and deck searching. 3 copies of Spellbook Magician of Prophecy, basically drawing support. 3 copies of Magician Souls for drawing support and or special summon support from the deck, graveyard. And then 3 copies of Magician's Rod for searching for spells and traps for Dark Magician. 1 Red Eyes Black Dragon for the Dragoon Engine. 1 copy of Dark Magical Circle and 1 copy of Eternal Soul.
How come you only run 1 copy of each of those?
So because we're going to run 3 copies of Soul Servant, we have the ability, if that gets destroyed, sent to the graveyard, or from the hand of the graveyard, we can actually just top deck those from the graveyard back to the top of the deck. So we have a way to get them back. The only downside is if they get banished, we don't have a way to get them back from that. But I feel like that's not a common occurrence per se. And then we've got 3 copies of Spellbook of Knowledge, which is basically a Pot of Greed. 1 copy of Spellbook of Secrets, just to help us get more drawing support out of the deck. So if we need to get Spellbook of Knowledge. 1 Monster Reborn. 1 Magicalized Fusion, Eye of Timaeus, Secrets of Dark Magic, Red Eyes Fusion for the Dragoon Engine. So we're running 4 fusion cards.
Is fusion summoning like your end game with this deck?
So I think the end game for this deck is basically to have your inboard be the majority of the extra deck. So between the Exes, monsters, and yes, the fusion monsters, I think is the ultimate end game there. And then finally, we'll get to the traps. So we've got 3 copies of Ash Blossom, just the most versatile hand trap in the game. 1 copy of Ghost Ogre, basically our way of just clearing a card off the board, even though we don't negate it, we just need it off. And then 1 Infinite Impermanence trap, just because it's pretty versatile. It's a 2-for-1 if you have it set, or if you need a hand trap, it can be that too in a pinch. So just one of those.
Have you ever thought of running different hand traps? Like Effect Veiler, because that one's similar, or Battle Plotter?
Yeah, so I think Effect Veiler and Infinite Permanence are similar enough, and I don't feel like I need 3 for this deck per se. I've never played, in all the duels I played, I don't feel like I've ever needed 3. And then, so since this is so similar, I feel like that's pretty good. For Battle Fodder, I don't really think I need anything that would end the battle phase per se. So, and then the real power of this deck is basically the ability to draw through cards, so we don't want to take away that mechanism from the deck.
What things brick your deck?
Drawing Dark Magician Girl. Or having Dark Magical Circle or Eternal Soul banished. But I think the deck can play through that, but if they do get banished, it does make the match quite a bit harder. So that can be challenged, but I'm going to show you different ways to protect those in the combos. Okay, so we're going to look at the extra deck next. So 1 Predaplant Verte for the Dragoon Engine. 1 Blackluster Soldier Chaos, just a really epic card. 1 Hierophant of Prophecy to go with our Spellbook core. Ebon High Magician, really great with Dark Magician. Ebon Illusion Magician, even better with our Dark Magicians. Number 11, Big Eye, if we need to take control of an opponent's monster permanently. Red Eye's Dark Dragoon. Dark Magician, the Dragon Knight, who is our 5th Dark Magician in the deck. The Dark Magicians for drawing support. Quintet Magician, who basically would be a Magicalized Fusion as mostly as a last resort. And then Dark Cavalry and Dark Paladin as basically situational cards in the deck. So these are basically going to be our Eye of Timaeus cards, essentially. And so that's our extra deck. Okay, so we're gonna show some combos, and I'm gonna basically take you guys through what your beginning board would look like and some combos for that, and then mid-game, and then we'll take you to the end game. Okay, so for the first combo, we're gonna talk about the opening hand, and we might typically get an opening hand like this. Preferably, we're looking to start with Rod, and also a Soul Servant, and preferably Spellbook of Knowledge, if possible, because we've got 3 copies of each in the deck. But essentially, in a nutshell, we're going to open with Rod. We're going to pray to God that they don't negate that with Ash Blossom. And what we're wanting to do is add either Eternal Soul or Magical Circle to the deck. For convenience, I've added those to the top there. So we're going to add Search Soul from the deck, add that to our hand. And then basically, we're going to activate Soul Servant to top deck a card from the deck. And so the next one we're going to be looking for is Dark Magical Circle. So we're going to top deck that. This goes to the graveyard. We will save that in the graveyard to banish later once we can activate that card effectively. And then from here, we don't care about our Magician's Rod too much. We're going to activate Spellbook of Knowledge to tribute Magician's Rod to basically draw 2, which is going to give us our Magical Circle, as well as 1 additional card. And then from here, we can set Eternal Soul. That'll be resolved. And then we can also activate Magical Circle, which will let us excavate the top 3 cards of our deck and add a Dark Magician card to our hand. So from there, we're basically going to add Dark Magician and then return these back in the order we want. So we're going to put Rod or whatever card on top that's more situational. And now we're set up with both the cards that we need. So then when we go to the next turn, we can activate Soul, Special Summon Magician, and then trigger off the effect of Magical Circle. And then when it comes back, that allows us to banish an opponent's card. And then the following turn, when it's our second turn, then we can Eye of Timaeus. In this case, I drew that. So we can Eye of Timaeus Dark Magician. And so the idea with the opening hand is basically to get your early board set up as early as possible with these 2 cards. And that's the first combo. Okay, so the next opening combo is if you kind of get a hand with not a lot going on, but you get some Spellbook cards. So the goal with this is basically to use your Spellbook engine to draw through the deck as much as possible to kind of get you started. So basically, you either want to have a Magician of Prophecy by herself, that would be okay, or you want to have her and a Spellbook of Knowledge. You don't want to just have Spellbook of Knowledge. So in this case, if you have both of these in her hand, you can basically do one of 2 things. You can either activate Spellbook of Knowledge from the hand, discarding her to draw 2. And then basically you get to keep your normal summon. So then you can, if you happen to draw Magician's Rod, then you would normal summon him and activate his effect. Or we could activate now Magical Circle and so on. But if you do not have Spellbook of Knowledge in hand, then what you want to do is normal summon Magician of Prophecy, which is going to let you search for Spellbook of Knowledge from your deck. You add that to your hand, and then you're going to activate it, tributing her from the field to draw 2. So either way, you've got a way to get a Pot of Greed. And then in this case, I drew a Spellbook of Secrets, so I could go ahead and activate that even to get another Magician of Prophecy for the following turn, or Spellbook of Knowledge. And then you basically just want to continually draw through your deck. And then finally, in either case, we drew Magical Circle. That's lucky. That's part of our beginning game board. So we would do that and then excavate the top 3. And then now we can add Eternal Soul to our hand. And then we also add Dark Magician starting in our hand. So now we can kind of get set up with Magical Circle and Eternal Soul on the board. And then basically during our opponent's turn, Then we can normal summon Dark Magician, triggering off the effect of Circle to banish a card our opponent controls. And then for the following turn, we have Rod ready to go, so we could activate him and basically search for our next Dark Magician card. So the point is to basically use spellbooks to draw through the deck as much as possible. Okay, so this next combo is going to be a little bit more mid-game, but I cleared the board so I can show it to you. Really, I'm just going to show you kind of the full power of what you can do with this deck. You do have to account for getting negated and stopped and things like that, but just to kind of show you what you can do. So let's say that we draw for turn, and I draw Mahad. I'm going to reveal him to my opponent, and we're going to special summon him to the field. Then we're going to basically take Apprentice Illusion Magician. We can special summon her by discarding a Dark Magician to the graveyard. And then her effect will activate, which lets us search for Dark Magician in our deck. I just put him on the top for convenience. So now we have another one to our hand. And then from there, what we're going to do is we want to maximize what we can get out of Soul Servant. So we're actually going to activate Magician's Souls. And basically he would allow us to send a Dark Magician or Dark Magician Girl from our deck to the graveyard. So I would always send Dark Magician Girl first as my preference. So now we've got Magician, Dark Magician Girl, and Mahad on the field. Those are the three things to maximize the effect of Soul Servant. And then instead of sending him to the graveyard to special summon, that would be an option we can do. I'm going to special summon him in defense position. And then basically from there, I'm going to activate or normal summon Rod. And we're going to search for Dark Magical Circle. I'm going to activate Magical Circle, or we could search for Eternal Soul and add that to our hand, and then we can top deck. So actually that would probably be the order I would go in, but we'll do this. I'm going to activate Circle. We would excavate the top 3 cards of our deck, add a Dark Magician to our card to our hand, then we can put these back in any order. So for the following turn, I'd probably leave the order alone in this case. Maybe do that, put Magician of Prophecy first. Then I'm going to activate Soul Servant from the hand, which allows me to top deck a card. And then basically we're going to top deck, at this point, Eternal Soul. And then that goes to the graveyard. And then what we do is we banish Soul Servant from the graveyard. And because we have Mahad, Dark Magician Girl, and Dark Magician on the field and or in the graveyards, we actually get to draw 3. And then from there, I can set Eternal Soul, and we've got a Dark Magician ready to go, and also in our graveyard. And then from there, I could actually activate Spellbook of Knowledge if I wanted to, and I can get rid of Souls or Rod, either or. I'd probably, in this case, get rid of Rod because he's in attack position. And then basically we draw an additional 2 cards. And so just in that, we essentially got 2 cards from the deck and drew 5 cards. So that's really probably the best combination of cards you can use together to draw through your deck and get all the cards you need as easy as possible. The next combo, again, you're going to be a little bit mid-game, but I'm going to show you the ritual engine of this deck. And then as a little bonus, if you happen to have Eye of Timaeus or another fusion card, I'm going to show you some other cool things you can do. So in this case, basically we can activate Soul Servant from the hand, and basically we can top deck. As you know, I run 1 copy of Magician of Chaos in this deck because he's a Dark Magician card and has Dark Magician in the text. We can top deck him. And then by this point, we'll have a Dark Magician or Magician Girl in the graveyard mid-game. So then we'll banish Soul Servant from the graveyard. And I'll draw 2 in this case, just as an example. And then we will activate Secrets of Dark Magic, either attributing from the field or our hand a Dark Magician to ritual summon Magician of Chaos. And then his name becomes Dark Magician on the field or the graveyard. And actually that's one reason why I think he's worth running in this deck, because now we can Eye of Timaeus. We're going to tribute him, and he's been properly summoned at this point. And we're gonna go ahead and actually bring out Dark Magician the Dragon Knight, whose name also becomes Dark Magician on the field or in the graveyard. And now he's been properly summoned. And then we're gonna trigger off the effect of Eternal Soul and activate that. And now we can actually bring back Magician of Chaos. And the reason I like both of these cards is Dark Magician the Dragon Knight prevents your spells and traps from being targeted or destroyed by card effects. Eternal Soul protects Dark Magicians from being targeted or destroyed by card effects. That includes both of those. And then if either one of these get destroyed now from your playing field, they've both been properly summoned, and you can bring them both back one per turn with Eternal Soul. And then because they're both Dark Magician on the field, they both each trigger off Magical Circle. And then triggering off Magical Circle when he's on the field will activate his effect. So not only can you banish one opponent's card, but then you can also destroy one opponent's card. So you always can basically get rid of 2 of your opponent's cards every turn with him combined with Magical Circle on the field, and then with Eternal Soul being able to get them back if they're gone. Only thing it doesn't do is if they're banished, you're kind of screwed there. But that's why I believe both those cards combined with these 2 are really powerful to run in this deck. This next combo is going to be closer to the in-game than mid-game at this point, but if you kind of get yourself set up and you're doing pretty well, and you can do this in the beginning game, even on your first turn if you can pull it off. So, but basically, I'm going to summon some kind of effect monster. We want to get 2 effect monsters on the field. It can be Rod and Magician of Prophecy. It could be Apprentice Illusion Magician. It doesn't matter. You could even sacrifice a high-level monster for us. But basically, I'm going to show you the Dragoon Engine. So we're going to take 2 of these guys. We're going to send those to the graveyard for the link summon of basically Predaplant Verte. And then we would basically then activate the effect of Verte, paying 2,000 life points, and basically also send Magicalized Fusion to the graveyard. And then basically resolve his effect. We would also send Red Eyes Black Dragon, as well as a Dark Magician to the graveyard, 2 normal monsters, and that's why you run Red Eyes Black Dragon in the deck. We would send that to the graveyard, and then we would basically bring out Red Eyes Dark Dragoon. And then because we normal summon or fusion summoned him through Verte with 2 normal monsters, then we can activate his effect to destroy up to 2 monsters our opponent controls, and then we would inflict damage equal to their original attack to our opponent each time. And then he's got his effect to be able to once per turn quick effect, you discard a card to negate the activation of any card, and then he gains 1,000 attack every time you do that, but only if you negate it and destroy it. If Dragoon just negates it, but he's not the one that actually destroys that card, he negates it, but he doesn't actually get the 1,000 attacks, so you gotta be careful with the card ruling on that one. So that's just the Dragoon Engine, pretty basic and straightforward. Now this next combo is pretty cool. I think it's underrated. So let's say we're kind of getting towards in-game, or at least we've done the Dragoon Engine and we've got Verte on the field. I'm gonna draw, and let's say I can draw him and reveal Mahad, and then basically special summon him to the field. Or let's say we already have Mahad there, and then we do the Dragoon Engine after. Basically what I'm getting at is you have Verte and Mahad on the field, and basically Verte has the effect where you basically can target one of your opponent's monsters and make it dark. And then you go to battle phase and you attack with Mahad, and because that monster is now dark, Mahad's attack doubles from 2,500 to 5,000. So I feel like combining those 2 together is a pretty decent combo if you can pull that off and the timing is right. So this is already pretty close to what your in-game board will look like. You may have even already won or lost by this point, but basically I'm going to show you some final things you can do to maybe put yourself over the edge and win. So if you're set up with Eternal Soul, Magical Circle, or maybe you don't have them anymore at this point, but you have a lot of high power monsters on the field, there's a couple other things we can do with this deck. One of those is we can bring out Blackluster Soldier of Chaos by bringing out, attributing 3 monsters with different names. And so I like him as an in-game card because his effect is so good. Basically, when he destroys a monster, he gains 1,500 attack permanently, or he can do 2 attacks your next turn, or you can banish a card. So he's kind of one of the in-games for me. So I would typically tribute, and maybe I have something else on the field to tribute, or maybe I would normal something, you know, maybe like a rod or something like that. And then basically I would tribute cards to link summon Black Luster Soldier of Chaos, and even if it's a high power monster like Magician of Chaos, we can always bring it back with Eternal Soul. So it's not a big deal. And then basically I can summon Black Luster Soldier of Chaos in this case because the link at that point. Otherwise, you would have to use like Verte and then put him in the extra deck zone. But your in-game board is going to kind of look like, preferably like Dragoon, Black Luster Soldier of Chaos, Magician of Chaos, Dark Magician, Dragon Knight. And then basically in some cases, you might even have Magicalized Fusion as you've played through the game. And so we would activate him, and essentially you're going to have a lot in your graveyard by this point in time. So we can banish 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different spellcaster monsters. And so basically we banish all of that from the field. And then that would give us basically Quintet Magician. And then with 5 different spellcaster monsters, his effect activates and basically wipe your opponent's board. It destroys all cards they control, and he cannot be targeted or destroyed by card effects. Most of these monsters can't, except for maybe Magician of Chaos. But if you have Eternal Soul and everything, that's pretty good. So this is kind of what I think the in-game board, if you're doing really well, this is kind of what your in-game board should look like. You probably won't have Verte at that point though, but you'll kind of have a setup something like this, maybe like that, and then your goal is to basically wipe your opponent at that point. Okay, so we've kind of talked about all the combos, or like what I consider the main combos by this point in time. And again, nothing's perfect. You have to account for your opponent negating you, and obviously you're playing against a real person. But so we're going to talk about the rest of the cards because they're kind of not the core of the deck per se. We're going to talk about kind of when to use them and why they're in the deck, and go from there. So Ghost Ogre, this is in the deck because mainly if your opponent has a monster with an effect or a face-up spell or trap card, often a continuous card that you need to just, you don't really care so much about negating it, but you need to just get it off the field because maybe it's been there for several turns or going to be, and you don't want it to be there. This, I feel like Ghost Ogre is just an easy way to activate and destroy that card. And Ghost Ogre, you can basically activate from the hand by discarding her. So that's why she's there. Obviously, Ash Blossom, self-explanatory. You're going to play this not just any time your opponent activates an effect that would trigger this, but the right effect. You want to basically, in my opinion, prevent them from doing a special summon would be number 1. Or if they're going to draw 2 or draw 3, prevent them from doing that. Or not so much send a card from the deck to the graveyard. Although with that, you can use Ash Blossom actually to negate Verte, because they have to send Red Eyes Fusion from the deck to the graveyard, or Red Eyes Black Dragon or Dark Magician. So you can actually negate Verte or even Red Eyes Fusion directly with Ash Blossom, but just a very versatile hand trap, and there's 3 of those in the deck. Monster Reborn, again, if you've properly summoned any of your powerful cards and they get sent to the graveyard, like let's say Dragoon gets sent to the graveyard or Quintet sent to the graveyard, we want to be able to get it back. So you're going to save Monster Reborn to the last possible minute for one of these powerful cards, or Black Luster Soldier of Chaos, or if you're in a situation where you have no other option but to Monster Reborn, or if there's an option to Monster Reborn from your opponent's graveyard that could play in your favor. So that's why Monster Reborn's there. Infinite Impermanence, just a good trap, just one of those. If you need to negate, again, your opponent's monster effect for 1 turn, so you can then do something safely, as an example, or if you're lucky enough to set it and then negate a column, but just basically another way to stop your opponent. Big Eye can be really useful because as you're going to run Eternal Soul and constantly special summon Dark Magician from the graveyard, and you're going to have him on the field a lot, he's Dark Magician right now, or any level 7 spellcaster, which includes Mahad, essentially, where you need to summon him. He's got decent attack, but then you can activate his effect to detach material. So we could basically summon him, for example, with Magician of Chaos and another Magician or Mahad, and then basically bring him. We could discard Magician of Chaos to the graveyard. We could take control of an opponent's monster, and then with the Eternal Soul, we could bring that material back to the field. So Big Eye, if you need to control an opponent's monster, can be very powerful. Ebon High Magician, I don't play too much. It's in the extra deck, but there's really nothing I would say about it. I would play this last, honestly, if I've already played everything else I can possibly play. So we won't talk about that too much. Hierophant of Prophecy. So again, like Big Eye, he requires just 2 level 7s spellcasters. That's Magician, that's Mahad. basically, as we've played through the game, we have played a bunch of Spellbook cards, specifically Spellbook spell cards. And for each one of those in your graveyard, he can target and destroy up to that number of spells and traps from your opponent's field. So I would use him if I need to clear my opponent's field of spells and traps, as long as I have enough Spellbook cards to do that. And he also has decent attack, 2800, 2600. So I feel like he's a pretty good card. Ebon Illusion Magician, I didn't show the combo for him, but basically 2 level 7s, again, like everything else. So what I would do with him is you would basically Exi summon him to the field, and then you can detach a material to actually special summon Dark Magician from the deck. And then the other combo you can do is if you have Dark Magician on the field, a normal monster Dark Magician, and he attacks, that'll trigger off his effect, which then allows you to banish one card your opponent controls. So you have multiple ways, including Magical Circle and Ebon, and even the effect of Magician of Chaos to either banish or destroy cards from your opponent's side of the field. So I feel like he's pretty good and pretty easy to summon. The Dark Magicians, I would bring this out if I'm in a situation where I have a Magician Girl, Dark Magician, or Dark Magician and one Spellcaster, basically, and I need to add more drawing support to the field, because basically once per turn, when your opponent or you activates a spell or trap, it activates that effect, which then allows you to draw one card from the top of your deck, and if it's a spell or trap, you can set it to the field. And then when this is destroyed and goes to the graveyard, then you can basically special summon one Dark Magician and one Dark Magician Girl from either your deck or graveyard back to the field. So it's pretty good, but I would mainly use it just for drawing support. And then Dark Cavalry and Dark Paladin are the last two cards that honestly I would use. I would use Eye of Timaeus for these as situational. So Dark Cavalry, if I was in a position where I needed his negate effect for targeting, or if something's targeted, I can discard a card and negate it. Or if I need to basically do piercing damage on an opponent's defense position monster, Dark Cavalry is really good for that. And he can end up with pretty high attack because his effect of getting 100 attack for each spell and trap on the field and graveyards, that can add up between you and your opponent. So I have Timaeus for him, but don't special summon him any other way unless you want to run like Super Poly. And then Dark Paladin, if you're playing against a dragon deck, you need to overpower your opponent just through raw attack. He gains a lot of attack from dragon monsters just by being on the field, and you Eye of Timaeus him. Otherwise, I would never use him just because of his effect to discard a card to negate a spell card, because we have so many other options. Mainly just if I need to overpower my opponent through attack. And we do happen to have some dragon monsters in the deck. Dark Magician Dragon Knight is a dragon monster. We've got Red Eyes Black Dragon as a dragon monster. So with those two in the graveyard, that's 3,900 attack that Dark Paladin gets in total. So pretty good there. And that is basically the rest of the cards. So we've shown all the combos at this point. So hopefully you guys have enjoyed all of this. We're going to show a couple of duel replays so you can see the deck in action. But hopefully this gives you a basis for using this deck profile, and I hope you guys really enjoyed it.